Obviously AI, whether it's generative, predictive, all of these require a lot of data, good data, and a lot of it is proprietary data. So this is certainly something I know Pega focuses on a lot, is, just how to do this well at enterprise grade data capabilities. So can you talk a little bit about how do you maintain that focus? What are you thinking about as you're, obviously you have to have the best data possible, but you also have to take those considerations of the enterprise in mind.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to talk about AI and data without breaking down the differences between some of the different AI technologies that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I often like to think about the distinction between what I think of as left brain AI, which is analytical, it's mathematical, it has a little bit of explainability to it. And we use left brained AI, predictive analytics, Bayesian models, some self learning adaptive models at pretty massive scale with pretty significant clients to do things like next best action. So figure out, when you're talking to a customer, what's the best possible conversation to have with them? Is it offering them a new product? Is it, trying to take some action to retain them? Is it just getting them to a service case that they need to get resolved faster?
Yeah.
And that next best action, we're able to do that in a way that completely uses the client's data, but keeps it completely safe, separate. It's their own. There's no injection of that into some master model. That becomes a very proprietary model that only the client has access to. And the models are very explainable. They can explain why and how they made a certain decision. We call that transparency. That becomes very important. So
Yeah.
for those kinds of analytical AI models, we've built a lot of expertise with our clients on how to do that in a way that ensures that the data that they have and then the models that are built from that data stay private and protected to the client. And our clients want that not just to protect their data, but a lot of these models then become competitive advantage to them. And they don't want to be running the same model as somebody else. They very much want their own model.
Yeah. Yeah.
The right brain side of AI, generative AI, that is kind of creative and can, we've seen it, you play with Midjourney, it generates images and it can create text, and you can ask it to, write Bob Dylan lyrics that never existed before, right? That generative AI requires much more massive data sets, like billions or tens of billions of records to train.
Yeah.
And what we've been working with there is, one, making sure that we're not sending client data or PII data over to the model. So we've built tools into our Gen AI architecture that do things like strip out protected information so that it doesn't flow through into the model. But I also think that as we've played more with a Gen AI, we're learning that we don't. I think that the needs to fine tune or retrain a Gen AI model are actually few and far between. So we've been experimenting much more with techniques like what's called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, where you are able to build a proprietary protected safe data set. So say I've got a knowledge library that is proprietary to me as a client, and I want to have AI answer questions, but I want to base it entirely on the content in that library. Well, I use a RAG-based approach where I put that content library into a vector database, so it's chunked up into little pieces. And then instead of training the AI model, I actually build my prompt to AI that includes the content from my proprietary data source that I wanted to use to answer the question. So I actually prompt the Gen AI model, the GPT model, by saying, here's a question I need you to answer. I want you to answer it solely based on this set of content that I found in my vector database. And if you don't find an answer there, say, I don't know. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to generate answers from AI that are explicitly tied to a proprietary knowledge base and traceable back to that knowledge base, without having to make my knowledge base public or out having to push my knowledge or my proprietary data into the model. We built We've got a new product called Gen AI Knowledge Buddy that is basically the implementation of that with a bunch of controls to make it work at the enterprise scale. And I think that those kinds of approaches, as we play more with these Gen AI tools, I think are going to become much more prevalent as a way to use the power of some of these publicly available models from OpenAI and Azure and Google and AWS and others, but still protecting your proprietary enterprise data.